Welcome to the 9th episode of the Student Recap Podcast. Today we will have the second part of the two-part series, Teacher Talk, and today I will be interviewing two teachers, Mr. Craven, who is an algebra teacher, and Mr. Beard, who is an English teacher. Now would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
So I'm Mr. Craven. I've been at Cooper. This is my second year now. I teach Algebra 1 and Introduction to Algebra this year. Last year I taught 6th grade algebra and algebra.
I'm Mr. Beard. I am also in my second year. I came on with old Craven. I am currently teaching 8th grade English. I taught 7th and 8th last year, and a little elective called Dungeons and Dragons with our boy Rafa here.
Oh, yeah, we'll get into that later. So, whichever one of you wants to go first. What made you want to become a teacher?
I can start us off here. My first big boy job out of college. I worked at a sort of robotics programming firm in Austin called National Instruments. I was a tech writer, and my job pretty much consisted of me having to bother software engineers to get them to explain things so that I could write it up in a way that a layperson could understand. And they didn't ever really have a ton of patience for anyone distracting them from whatever they were doing. Yeah, it was not the friendliest dynamic. And I was just coming home demoralized and kind of beaten down by the job every day. It was kind of a cubicle farm job. It just was not a great fit for me. The girl I was dating at the time was currently getting her teaching certification. And she would just come home with much more pleasant and funny stories than I was. So I looked into that myself, and here I am now 15 years into teaching.
Wow.
And so, this is year 8 teaching for me. And I think I was somebody who kind of grew up knowing I wanted to be a teacher and a coach. In 8th grade, I coached my little cousin's basketball team.
That's cool.
And it was like...
Winning season?
Yeah, winning season. We actually won the league championship that year.
Wow.
A bunch of other 8-year-olds we're competing against. But, the experience of getting someone better at something and having a role in that process has always made it not feel like work. To piggyback kind of on what Mr. Beard is saying of... It's a job that you get to do. It doesn't always feel like you have to do it. It's a fun job. So now I parlayed that into coaching and teaching out in Colorado, and then came here. Haven't been coaching other than Math Counts, which is a little Math Counts plug. You know how that goes.
I mean, math can be competitive.
Yeah, and then teach it. But yeah, to Mr. Beard's point as well, I feel pretty lucky that I don't feel like I have to work. I feel like I just get to go to work every day and teach. It's a good difference.
Yeah, so branching from that, how do you like being a teacher?
I love it. I absolutely love it, and I specifically love this age group because in teaching middle school, you are oftentimes, the kids are old enough that you're, that you're not really babysitting, but they're still young enough or have not been exposed to certain content in a way that you can still get to see that light bulb moment a lot. And that is, I'm seeing a nod from Mr. Craven across the way here. That is one of the most rewarding aspects of the job, when you get to be the person who introduces, and this is the first time you're going to consider symbolism or whatever the case may be. Definitely. And it's something that will define how they examine literature or movies or any examination of any text over the course of the rest of their life. That's a cool responsibility to get a hand in how they're going to consume media for the rest of their life and how they're going to take in storytelling.
Yeah, definitely. My past English teachers, they're definitely the ones who made me be like, oh yeah, I want to read books. Now I'm like super into dystopian and sci-fi books, and it's like, wow, my teachers introduced me to that literature.
And for math, I think it's similar, where I feel like a big part of being a math teacher is trying to present math in a way that is challenging enough to be worth trying, but not overwhelming enough to where people want to give up in the face of it. And I feel like that's like a fun balance of being a math teacher, which I've learned to appreciate, is how to keep things fun and keep things light, but also make sure that we're like moving towards growth each day. And so, yeah, it kind of just ties into, again, why I got into teaching, of just like that role in that process of someone growing up it makes work feel fun, rewarding, and all those other like cringy buzzwords. So.
Plus, you have a captive audience to try out all your lame bits and jokes.
Yeah, Rafa was my advisee. He's never heard me make a bad joke in my life, right, Rafa?
Yeah, no, you're a great comedian.
All good jokes.
Yeah, in your class, I definitely enjoyed when we were studying playing those like games. There was one where you like had to solve problems and go up the mountain.
Yep.
Just definitely adding that more fun layer rather than just be like, this is how you do math, and you should do it this way, and you're going to do this on the test.
For sure.
Another perk of working, I think, with this age group is you can still sneak in a lot of those games before it's all a little more serious business further on down the hall.
Yeah, no more Blookets in high school.
That's right.
True that.
So, for you, why did you want to become a math teacher instead of other subjects?
So initially, I actually got into like teaching, wanting to be an English teacher.
Oh, so like him.
Yeah. So I'm interested to hear Mr. Beard's answer as well. But yeah, I kind of got into teaching thinking I would be going the English route. I like telling stories. But I realized that a lot of people's experience with math, especially around the teenage years, is the first time math kind of gets difficult.
Yeah, it kind of sucks sometimes.
Exactly. And so I've kind of started to look at being a math teacher, and the reason why I got into math is it's a cool responsibility to try to be the math teacher that breaks that trend up. Do you get what I'm saying? And so, I try to bring some of the storytelling aspects, like you said, and jokes and cringy little comedian bits to try to hold your attention, while also like getting better at math each day. So,
I became an English teacher because that was the position they were hiring for when I made the switch.
Shout out.
I do have degrees in English and history. I would have been equally fine with either one, but again, to mirror what Mr. Craven was saying, it's all about stories, how they're told, what the role of the story is in culture. I find that just endlessly fascinating. The way stories can be applied, the lessons you can learn or not learn, as the case may be, all that is just something I could discuss ad nauseum, as the people who have been in my classes will testify to.
Yeah, so for this age group, you guys are definitely shaping like how they learn and become critical thinkers later on in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like this is the turning point in their life. They're getting to be teenagers. Their personalities are getting shaped every day, every lesson. Not to stress you guys out, but it's just a really important age that kids will like start piquing their interests. Like for me, I started getting interested in like geopolitics and diplomacy in the 8th grade, some in 7th grade. But really, it was middle school that made me the person that I am today.
Can I flip a question onto you real quick?
Okay.
Is that a process that you're conscious of while it's happening, or is it something that you became more aware of now that you're in high school and can look back? Do you get what I'm saying?
I feel like I'm only more conscious now because then I realize like when I'm with certain friends, I act differently. And then I'm going to be like, am I going to hang out with these people in like 3 months, or are they just like something that I've just been doing for today or for the past week?
So you're applying that critical thinking lens to like social dynamics and every other aspect
social
of your life,
dynamics.
too. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, kind of on a darker tone. Do you think the school system in America is going in a good direction currently?
I think this is a fun one because Mr. Beard and I kind of talk about this a lot in our spare time. That's what teachers do. We just get together and go, uh-oh, or here we go. And I think one of the things that is an interesting uh-oh moment right now is where all of education is with AI, and trying to incorporate it as a tool, as a thing that our job as educators is to prepare y'all for, but without sacrificing any of the learning along the way. And I think right now, the same way it probably was when the internet was invented, probably when people first started having Texas Instrument calculators in the classroom, we're at like a spot where not everything is as easy as, oh, we'll just fix our lessons this way, and now we're AI proof. Mm-hmm. And so I think that is kind of where we're headed towards. Not like an uh-oh moment. I think it's just a place where education is trying to be careful with and grow into.
I think a lot of the pressure to point education in the right direction is obviously in the hands of the educators, because you can look back to ancient Greece and you can read accounts of philosophers and educators that are saying, like, students are writing down their great works of literature now and they're reading them. That's going to destroy their memory and they're not going to be critical thinkers anymore. There's always some new wave in education that everyone cries doom and gloom. This is going to take all of the thought out of it, and it's just a tool that everyone's going to lean on, and intellect is going to decline as a result. That's been going on for thousands of years. It's just up to the educators to try as best as we can to look to what the future is going to resemble, how best we can prepare our students to use these new innovations like AI as a tool, because it's not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. But again, going back to the point of critical thinking that we were talking about, that is, you won't know how best to apply the usage of the tool if you can't internalize that process of critical thought, where you can look at a scenario and say, okay, here's how I can best use the tool.
Agreed.
But before you're able to do that in a way that just kind of detaches you from that process, you have to have developed the skills and the mindset and the thought patterns, hopefully in your time in education, to not just lean on it too heavily and let the machine do all the thinking.
Can we get a little peek behind the freshman curtain? How do you feel education is going right now?
I feel like it's going in a good direction, but the AI, we can't just use it as like, oh, I'm going to do this English essay by asking AI to do it for me.
Right.
No, you're not actually analyzing the text or whatever by having AI do it for you. But also, I think social media and now with brain rot content is definitely like making people get less interested in school and more about the social environment around them. If we can get students to be like, oh yeah, if I do well in my classes and my interests and social groups grow, then I should be focusing more on school. But right now it's like, well, my classes aren't really connected to this. I'll just talk with my friends during class or like throughout the entire school day and not just pay attention and try to learn more.
That's what I think too is interesting about teaching at this level is it really is an arms race between students and teachers, in that AI's here. You guys are able to find out wherever the cracks in our curriculum is to best apply it, to take the load off of your own shoulders. And it's kind of on us to figure out how to not let that get in the way of you still getting a good education.
Yeah, I've definitely been at fault of trying to find loopholes in like rubrics to try to get out of some what I would think would be busy work. But I think it usually, if it's a project that I like, I'll do my best effort. I'll actually add extra to try to make my presentation the best without like the help of other tools like AI.
That's perfectly natural. It's the point of a tool, to streamline a process and make it easier.
So going back to the DMing thing from last year from D&D, how did you like helping our group out in our quest?
I've listened to a couple episodes of the podcast, so I know that Benjamin is a recurring guest.
Yes.
This is a conversation that Mr. Craven and I had last year. Something that I felt really benefited me as a first-time DM, being able to think on my feet and deal with let me put this politically, some of the bumps in the road that Benjamin would throw our way. Is I am used to having to come up with stories on the fly and playing with my toddlers. With Batman is all of a sudden going to get attacked by a flying T-Rex, but look out, now he can shoot lava from his eyes. I need to be able to adapt immediately and on the fly to account for that in whatever little story I'm playing with my buddy.
That has happened.
Wow.
You had that ready.
So if I'm doing that with my son, I've been able to sort of hone those skills to keep a narrative afloat while dealing with unexpected wrinkles to things that could derail the entire play.
And I think that was why, like, because if a podcast listener didn't know, we co-DM'd it. So Mr. Beard and I were co-DMs. And I think we found a natural kind of delegation of responsibility where he did more of the storytelling and the progressing of plot points, and mine was more the game mechanics. And so I felt like we were able to balance each other pretty well in that vein. And coming from someone who's played more than my fair share of video games and D&D myself, I think I kind of felt prepared for that role and less prepared for what I found out was live action, real-time responses to bumps in the road, as you put it politically.
An English teacher and a math teacher turns out make a perfect pair for a demo experience.
It went
So,
well. It was a fun time.
Recently, in one of our D&D sessions, we tried to, Benjamin tried to save Win, he's one of my friends, from a cage by using his, I think he had like a mage hand, but he was claiming he could make it as large as he wanted it to because the rules didn't say that he couldn't make it as large as he wanted to.
Flashbacks to last year.
I shivered. No.
Yeah, our DM is also a bit annoyed with our gimmicks that we tried to include in the game.
It's an arms race. You guys find the loopholes.
I was going to say that.
Yep.
I mean, that ties in really well to what we're saying with the AI talk too, where it is your job to try to figure out how to use this tool, which is the mage hand, to make what you're trying to accomplish easier. Mm-hmm. And the DM's job in this little analogy, is to try to figure out the guardrails to put on the world that you're in, so that you can still progress and you can still use all the tools at your disposal, but nothing's game breaking. And I think to come full circle, that's what we're trying to avoid with AI. Is not allowing anything game-breaking to happen to y'all's education when y'all are at an age where education, even though it's not the coolest thing to say out loud, matters a lot. Like, we're setting up y'all's next steps in life. Mm-hmm. And so...
It's again why I find working at the age so rewarding is, like you were alluding to earlier, Rafa, this is the age where you start to find out who you are, what your interests are, in a way that can shape literally the course of the rest of your life. And it can be a challenge as a teacher to be like, it's another Monday. I'm rolling in here. I got a big stack of papers to grade. To just see it as this is another day in the job. Yep. But it is vitally important, I feel like, for teachers to remain cognizant of the fact that you guys are oftentimes looking to us for advice or guidance in ways that will have ramifications years down the road that we can't even foresee. Sure. And that's the biggest reward and challenge of teaching, I would say.
Yeah, I definitely think for educators it's a joy to see like their kids succeed later in life, 100%. And especially in the subjects that they taught. Because, for example, if you had a student that would be like a Nobel Prize winner for mathematics, that would be like really good.
Exactly. 100%.
I've got some students of mine that are currently working on building robots that are being sent into space. Their first foray into robotics was playing with Legos with me in 6th grade. And when they talk to me a decade on and tell me that's not just like one of the most rewarding aspects of teaching. That's one of the most rewarding things in my life. That 100%. Means very, very much to get that feedback from a former student.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, are you still DMing this year for any groups for D&D?
I am not, actually. I tabled that to switch over to we're launching the robotics competition team this year.
Oh, so you're having one in middle school now. Okay.
And then same here. I'm kind of taking off. We're expecting our first son.
Woo!
Yeah. So that's going to be in November. Little Callum is due. And so I just wanted to not feel like I was having to tell the group to take a back seat mid-campaign. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to have my schedule as freed up as I can for when he gets here, because I'm kind of stoked. I'm ready.
You know, I could probably figure out a way to make AI be a DM if you gave it the rules.
Yeah.
And we used that, actually.
Well, yes, you used OpenAI, was it?
Yes. We used OpenAI.
Yeah, but that was to generate what would happen. Mm-hmm. But my idea would be that the AI literally narrates the stories. It tells you what to roll. It's conscious of the rules of the game.
So I would recommend maybe you want to talk about the sci-fi version of it that you did. But before that, do you remember how our campaign last year culminated?
Yeah.
you in particular, you had a little homie join your squad, right?
Eldritch Horror.
An Eldritch Horror, a pet Eldritch Horror that bonded itself to you. That was a suggestion of AI. That was not an original thought from us. Mm-hmm. We fed in to ChatGPT. Here is where we're at with this campaign. We're doing a modified version of this storyline. What are some unusual, shocking ways that this could resolve? And that was one of the ones we suggested. That's too good to pass up.
Yeah.
And if you ever do a act as prompt with AI, so you can go into ChatGPT and say, act as a DM for a campaign, and then you can start giving it those parameters that we described of with the mage hand, where you could say, act as a DM for a campaign that is centered in Middle Earth, and it will generate a prompt. And then you can say, or generate a response, and you can say further, I would like this campaign to be set up for just 2 people. So my wife Amber and I, we run through campaigns with ChatGPT where it will just ask us kind of passive questions.
Yeah.
We can respond, and then it takes our response and just gives us our new branch in the road.
Oh,
Does that make sense? And so another person that you can talk to as well is Mr. Gasper. Soft plug for Mr. Gasper, but he's aware and uses AI quite a bit because he does all kinds of different DMing roles and campaigns at this point, and I know that he's aware of some like really cool stuff it can do now.
Okay, well, I think this interview was pretty productive. Thank you both for coming on to the podcast, and I will see you viewers next week.
I appreciate you guys.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.